In today's video, I'll be answering the question of which TV show, Zombie Apocalypse, is the deadliest. In the flesh, this British series takes place after the zombie apocalypse has already ended. The undead rose, humanity fought back, and somehow won. Now the former zombies, called partially deceased syndrome sufferers, get medication and therapy to rejoin society as functional citizens. The show follows Kieran Walker, a PDS sufferer trying to reintegrate into his small village while dealing with prejudice from survivors who remember the Rising. The zombies in this world were traditional Romero-style slow movers who could be corralled, captured, and eventually treated with a drug called neurotryptyline. The series explores themes of discrimination and rehabilitation rather than survival horror, with treated PDS sufferers wearing contact lenses and makeup to blend in. Some extremist groups still hunt them, and untreated rotters remain dangerous, but the apocalypse itself proved survivable enough that society rebuilt within years. The deadliness factor drops significantly when your zombie outbreak comes with a pharmaceutical solution and government reintegration programs. But here's the question. If one outbreak could be stopped with medicine, what makes the others unstoppable? Hold on to that in mind, because what comes next proves speed isn't everything. Here's the thing, though. If humanity could develop a working treatment and win the war, why did the Rising happen in the first place? The show never fully explains the initial outbreak, leaving it as an unexplained supernatural event rather than a virus or infection. That mystery matters, because it means we're dealing with the aftermath of something that burned out on its own or was contained before it could truly end the world. Daybreak. The ghoulies in Daybreak only attack adults, turning every grown person into a blood-seeking monster while leaving teenagers completely untouched. This creates a Lord of the Flies scenario where high schoolers rule the ruins of civilization, forming tribes and fighting over resources in a post-apocalyptic Glendale, California. The series follows Josh Wheeler searching for his girlfriend Sam Dean through a landscape of teenage gangs, mutated animals, and adult zombies. The ghoulies themselves are fast and aggressive but lack intelligence, responding primarily to bloodlust when adults are present. The apocalypse started with a nuclear bomb that somehow caused this age-specific transformation, though the show keeps the science deliberately vague and comedic. Teenagers form elaborate societies with rules, hierarchies, and even working electricity in some compounds. The Mad Max aesthetic gets played for laughs, with references to high school cliques becoming literal warring factions. The deadliness drops because half the population survives uninfected and the zombies follow predictable patterns. Adults who got bombed stayed bombed, meaning no new infections spread the outbreak further. But the age immunity raises questions the show doesn't answer. What happens when these teenagers turn 18? The series got canceled before revealing that answer, but it exposes something critical. Selective infection means the outbreak has rules. What happens when the rules disappear completely? Dead Set. This British miniseries traps Big Brother housemates inside the studio during a fast zombie outbreak that tears through the UK. The zombies here are 28 Days Later style sprinters, aggressive and relentless, but the outbreak stays geographically limited to Britain. The show follows the reality TV contestants who don't realize the apocalypse started because they're isolated in the house without outside contact. When a producer stumbles in covered in blood, they discover the cameras that usually watch them now show a dead nation. The zombies turn in seconds from a single bite, creating cascade infections that collapsed British society in days. They're fast enough to chase down healthy adults and smart enough to swarm doors and overwhelm defenses. The production plays it straight, despite the reality TV satire, showing genuinely disturbing scenes of zombies tearing through crowds and stalking survivors. The miniseries ends bleakly, with most characters dead and no hope of rescue, suggesting the infection spread beyond containment. The deadliness would rank higher, except we only see one country fall. No confirmation exists that the outbreak went global, though the speed and aggression suggests it could. The isolation means we never learn if Europe or Asia fell the same way. But that geographic limit matters, because what comes next proves a slow infection can be deadlier than a fast one if it has one specific feature: The Walking Dead. Walkers move slowly, decompose over time, and only kill through bites or overwhelming numbers. The real danger comes from the fact that everyone already carries the infection and will reanimate after any death, meaning your friend dying of natural causes becomes a threat in minutes. The series follows Rick Grimes and various survivor groups through over a decade of post-apocalypse struggles. The wildfire virus spreads dormant in every human, activating upon death to reanimate the corpse regardless of whether they were bitten. Walkers shamble at a slow pace, giving survivors time to escape or fight back with basic weapons. Headshots kill them permanently, and they decay faster in hot weather, with some becoming stuck in mud or impaled on fences. The main threat comes from herds, massive groups of thousands that crush communities through sheer numbers. Fresh walkers retain some muscle memory and can turn doorknobs or pick up rocks, But they quickly lose even that basic intelligence. The show introduces variants in later spin-offs, including French cohorts that can climb and run, but classic walkers remain the standard. The deadliness sits in the middle because survival becomes routine with experience. Groups establish safe zones, walls, and farming communities that last years. The infection being universal means constant vigilance, but slow zombies give people time to think, plan, and build. The apocalypse killed 99.9% of humanity, yet stable communities emerge in America, Europe, and presumably everywhere else. The real killer isn't the walkers, but other humans fighting over resources, though the undead force that conflict by making the world scarce. But that hidden infection creates paranoia that faster zombies don't. When anyone dying for any reason becomes a threat, you can't trust illness, injuries, or natural death. The psychological weight adds up even if the physical danger stays manageable. So if slow zombies with universal infection rank middle, what beats that? The answer isn't just speed. Z Nation. The ZN1 virus creates diverse zombie variants from radioactive blasters to plant-infected phytos, with some zombies gaining intelligence as talking talkers who remember their human lives. The infection spreads to animals, meaning zombie dogs and bears join the undead army. The show follows a group escorting Murphy, the only known survivor of the zombie virus, across America to a California lab that might create a vaccine. The zombies range from recently turned fast runners to decayed slow shamblers, with fresh infection happening in seconds from bites. Environmental exposure creates variants like radioactive zombies glowing from nuke zones, and phytozombies merged with plants. The series takes a comedic approach to the apocalypse, showing survivors adapting with humor and creativity rather than grim drama. Murphy develops telepathic control over zombies and can create human-zombie hybrids called blends, who retain intelligence while gaining zombie strength. Later seasons introduce talkers, zombies who regain consciousness through a vaccine and live as functional members of society despite being technically undead. The cross-species infection means nowhere stays truly safe, with zombie animals ambushing from unexpected angles. The deadliness increases because adaptation doesn't mean safety. Variants keep evolving, creating new threats just when survivors think they've figured out the rules. The talking zombies add moral complexity, forcing questions about what counts as human when the undead can think and feel. The infection spreading to animals expands the threat beyond human population centers into wilderness areas, meaning rural survival becomes as dangerous as cities. Keep that escalation in mind. The zombies in Z Nation prove infection can mutate and evolve rather than staying static. What happens when evolution doesn't stop at talking zombies but keeps pushing the infected towards something more dangerous? Black Summer. This Z Nation prequel shows the earliest days of the outbreak when chaos reigns and nobody knows the rules yet. The zombies turn in seconds, sprint at full speed, and keep coming until their brain gets destroyed. The series follows scattered survivors, including a mother searching for her daughter through a landscape where trust means death and hesitation means infection. These zombies represent pure predatory efficiency, turning from bite to active threat in under 10 seconds. They're fast enough to overtake running adults and aggressive enough to smash through doors and windows without pause. The instant turn means your ally becomes your killer mid-conversation, creating constant paranoia. The show eschews long dialogue scenes for tense survival situations, showing desperate people making brutal choices to stay alive hours longer. Zombies swarm like piranhas, with the first infected alerting others until an entire horde converges. The editing style uses disorienting cuts and timeline jumps to mirror the confusion survivors experience. No organized resistance exists yet, no safe zones or established communities, just scattered individuals trying to escape the wave. The deadliness spikes because society gets no time to adapt. The infection moves faster than information, meaning people die before they understand what's happening. The speed eliminates traditional zombie survival tactics, like fortifying positions or outwalking herds. The seconds-long turn means every encounter with infected is a death sentence without immediate headshot accuracy. The chaos factor separates Black Summer from other outbreaks. When infection happens faster than people can warn others, containment becomes impossible. But speed alone doesn't make an apocalypse the deadliest. The next outbreak proves something disturbing. What if the zombies followed rules you could predict? What if knowing when they'd attack made things worse, not better? Kingdom. The resurrection plant reanimates corpses as fast, aggressive monsters that only hunt at night but hibernate during daylight. The infection spreads through bites and consumption of the plant, creating zombie outbreaks in Joseon-era Korea. The show follows Prince Lee Chang investigating a plague that's actually a zombie outbreak weaponized by political enemies. The monsters move with inhuman speed and agility, swarming victims in coordinated attacks that feel more like predator predator hunting than mindless shambling. Fresh infections turn quickly, with victims showing symptoms before dying and reanimating. The resurrection plan originally grew in northern regions, but officials weaponized it to create controllable outbreaks that eliminate enemies. The zombies only activate in darkness or cold temperatures, going dormant in heat and sunlight. This creates a pattern where survivors can move safely during day, but must fortify perfectly before night falls. Water also stops them, with infected unable to cross rivers or survive drowning. The series introduces variants, including intelligent animal zombies and Type B infected, who don't hibernate, expanding the threat. The political conspiracy angle shows how the outbreak gets deliberately spread to destabilize regions, making it both a natural and manufactured disaster. The deadliness increases because the night-day cycle creates false hope. Survivors think they're safe when the sun rises, but darkness brings guaranteed attacks. The cold weather connection means winter turns entire regions into zombie territory. The weaponization aspect shows how human manipulation makes outbreaks worse by deliberately spreading infection to new areas. The animal intelligence means these aren't rotting corpses, but enhanced predators with coordination. The hibernation pattern would lower deadliness except for one factor. The plant itself keeps existing as a source for new outbreaks, meaning someone can restart the infection intentionally. That sustained threat makes Kingdom's apocalypse permanent, but predictable danger gives you options. What happens when the infected evolve intelligence while keeping their immortality? That question brings us to something worse. All of us are dead. A science teacher creates the Jonas virus to remove fear from humans, accidentally making a zombie pathogen that spreads through a high school. The infected move fast, attack with rage-driven aggression, and get attracted to high-frequency sounds. The series follows students trapped in Hyosan High School as their classmates and teachers transform into sprinting monsters. The virus eliminates fear and pain receptors, making infected relentlessly aggressive and impossible to scare away. They respond to sounds above normal hearing range, with frequencies around 24 kilohertz attracting them like a dinner bell. The infection spreads through bites and blood contact, with victims showing nosebleeds and fever before cardiac arrest triggers death and reanimation within minutes. The school setting creates a pressure cooker situation where students can't escape and infected can't get out, leading to massive casualties as the outbreak spreads floor by floor. The show introduces Hambies, hybrid half-zombies who retain human intelligence while gaining zombie strength and healing. These hybrids, like Yoon Gui-nam, become nearly immortal, regenerating from fatal injuries and using strategy to hunt survivors. The virus eventually spreads beyond the school to the entire city of Hyosan before the military quarantines and bombs the area. The deadliness jumps because this outbreak targets young, fast hosts in a confined space, perfect for spreading infection. The sound attraction means any noise draws hordes, eliminating stealth as a survival strategy. The hybrid evolution creates super predators who think like humans but move like zombies, making them nearly impossible to outsmart or outfight. The government response of bombing entire cities shows how quickly this infection forces scorched earth tactics. But the Hambies represent the real paradigm shift. When infected retain intelligence and become effectively immortal, you're not fighting zombies anymore. You're fighting an evolved species that's better than human in almost every way. Yet even Hambies have weaknesses. They still think like humans, which means they can be outsmarted. What if the infection removed human thinking entirely and replaced it with something that operates as one collective mind? That's the final answer. The Last of Us. A mutated cordyceps fungus jumps to humans, creating an infection that progresses through increasingly deadly stages. Runners sprint and swarm in the early stage. Stalkers hide and ambush. Clickers use echolocation after going blind from fungal growth. Bloaters develop armor-like fungal plates that resist bullets. Shamblers release toxic spore clouds. The series follows Joel and Ellie across a devastated America 20 years after the 2013 outbreak. The infection spreads through bites and airborne spores in enclosed spaces, with spores remaining dormant in buildings for years, waiting to infect anyone without a gas mask. Fresh infections turn hosts into runners within hours, creating the initial panic that collapsed society. Over weeks to months, runners become stalkers who retain enough intelligence to hide and coordinate attacks. Clickers emerge after a year, completely blind but using echolocation clicking sounds to navigate and hunt with perfect accuracy in darkness. Bloaters take years to develop, becoming walking tanks that throw spore bombs and can only be killed with fire or sustained heavy weapons. The fungus operates as a networked colony, with infected in the same area sharing transferring information through fungal connections underground. This creates hive behaviors where attacking one infected can alert dozens through the network. The show reveals the fungus originally mutated from South American crops exposed to rising global temperatures, making climate change the indirect cause of humanity's end. Quarantine zones ruled by Fedra become fascist military states, while rebel groups like the Fireflies fight for freedom and a possible cure. Ellie's immunity to the infection makes her potentially humanity's last hope, though creating a vaccine would require killing her. The deadliest apocalypse comes down to three factors that The Last of Us combines perfectly. The airborne spores mean you can get infected without ever seeing a zombie, just by entering the wrong building. The staged evolution means the threat never decreases, but constantly escalates as infected age into more dangerous forms. The fungal network means killing zombies doesn't thin the herd, but potentially alerts every infected in the area to your location. Runners alone would be manageable, fast, but fragile. Clickers can be avoided with stealth, but bloaters change the equation by making direct combat nearly suicidal. The spore clouds Shamblers release deny entire areas to survivors, creating permanent no-go zones that expand as more infected die and release spores. The interconnected hive means you're never fighting individuals, but always fighting the entire fungal colony acting as one organism. The 20-year time jump shows that survival means living in heavily fortified zones with constant patrols and executions for anyone infected. Even then, zones fall regularly to infected hordes or human conflicts over resources. The Jackson community in Wyoming represents one of the last functioning towns, and even they survived through extreme isolation and military-level defenses. The infection spread globally within months, collapsing governments faster than anyone could mount organized resistance. The show confirms that humanity lost 60% of the population in the first year alone, with millions more dying in the chaos afterward. What makes this deadlier than faster zombies or more aggressive variants comes down to permanence. The fungus doesn't die off or weaken over time. It strengthens its hold through every infected host, building networks and evolving new forms. Infected don't decay into harmlessness like the Walking Dead walkers. They transform into something worse. The spores guarantee that cleared areas can't be safely reclaimed without gas masks forever. The staged evolution means experienced survivors who master fighting runners will still die to their first bloater encounter. The psychological factor pushes it over the edge. In other apocalypses, you fight zombies and hope to survive until things improve. In The Last of Us, you fight knowing the infected will keep evolving, keep spreading spores, and keep networking until they've converted every human into another node in the fungal colony. The infection doesn't want to kill you. It wants to transform you into part of itself. The cordyceps doesn't create undead. It creates a new species where human consciousness drowns under fungal control, leaving something that looks human but serves the colony. Joel's journey shows that even 20 years later, people haven't adapted to beat the infection. They've just carved out desperate hideouts in the ruins and wait for the infected to find them. Ellie's immunity offers hope, but the Fireflies died before they could use it. The ending leaves humanity still losing, still retreating, still watching the fungal networks expand. The deadliest zombie apocalypse isn't the fastest or the most aggressive. It's the one where survival means delaying the inevitable, where every cleared building fills with spores again, where killing infected just feeds the fungal network growing under your feet, and where humanity's future depends on a 14-year-old immune girl that might need to die to save a species that's already lost. Every outbreak we've covered so far had one thing in common. They created chaos, but chaos you could understand. Fast zombies, slow zombies, smart hybrids, they all operated on logic survivors could learn. But the deadliest apocalypse doesn't follow logic. It follows biology, and biology doesn't care about giving you a fair fight. If you enjoyed this video and want to see everything people get wrong about 28 Days Later, click the video on the screen.